one. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Uncensored Critic Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me again for another very special episode with two very special guests. And I've been looking forward to this one immensely. And that is Mr. Bobby Windebank. Did I say that right, Bobby?
You did say that right. Gold star. Well done.
Yes, I probably should have checked that. I did an episode the other day and I thought I should probably check the pronunciation first. Anyway, I'll learn that lesson second time around. And Steffan Lloyd-Evans, two of the most aspiring performers as well as personal trainers you'll find in the industry as well. And of course, they are behind the brilliant Fit2Talk podcast, which you'll find on Apple and Spotify. Go follow their Instagram. Link to it is below in the description for clips, updates, and of course, advice on your fitness as well as your food as well. So let's take a little moment to introduce the two of them. So Bobby trained at the Lane Theatre Arts, and he's made appearances on television with American Monster for Discovery, Deceased for ITV, and The Railway Children for ITV. On stage, he has appeared on the Rock of Ages UK tour, Carmen at the O2 Arena, and Dodger and Oliver at the London Palladium, as well as Benvolio in Romeo and Juliet for the UK tour, and Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat in Toronto, with a potential Broadway revival on the cards. And Steffan trained at the Central School of Speech and Drama. From a young age, he has made appearances with the Welsh National Opera, Musical Theatre Wales, BBC, and S4C. On TV, he has appeared for BBC Wales and The Royals with E. Your credit with BBC Wales is a title I can't pronounce because I'm not, even though I am Welsh myself, I don't speak it.
It translates roughly to something like People of the Valley. It's essentially like EastEnders in Wales.
Oh, very nice. Very good. And for theatre, he has worked on the Matilda on the UK tour with the RSC, comedy about a bank robbery in the West End, Into the Woods at the Minor Chocolate Factory in London, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat UK tour, as well as HMS Pinafore and Trial by Jury with the Gilbert and Sullivan Opera Company. And if that's not enough, these guys also talk on the podcast everything from acting to market research, market industry, and how fitness needn't be boring. Their words, not mine. And it's a genuine pleasure to have you on, guys. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Thank you very much for having us on to the show.
No, it's a pleasure. It's all mine. Pleasure's all mine. Thank you for being here, guys. I know you've trying to pin you down because you've been so busy recently and everything with, Bobby, you just finished the job, and Steffan, you've seen your fitness page and just dropping all that motivation, all that advice. So it's good to finally pin you guys down. So we start with an opening question on this show, which is to begin at the beginning, as the great Dylan Thomas once said. Where did it all start for you guys? I think because you're involved in fitness as well as acting, but we'll start with the acting. Where did it all start for you guys? Where did it come from?
I'll let you go first. You go.
For me, I was incredibly fortunate in one sense that my family is quite artsy in that sense, in that my dad is an opera singer. So he was working with Welsh National Opera while I was growing up. And so I was exposed to that growing up. And for me, whilst I loved the magic of it, going to watch opera, I was like, they sound great, but I don't really care that much. That's the honest truth. That's what you wanted on this show, right? And so I remember thinking to myself, how do I do that, but get people really invested in the story, not just the sound of it and how it sort of is being sung or made. So, that led to first music theatre, and then going, okay, when I want to train as an actor. So that's the thing that's important, is the story in this. So that's it in a nutshell for me.
For me, I started off as a kid. I started off by doing like modeling as a kid, and then started getting into adverts, and ended up like auditioning for some films. And I got really close to getting part as the young Charlie Chaplin in the Chaplin film when I was a kid, and they came back to me and they said, look, we really like you, we would have loved to have cast you, but you can't tap dance, and we need the other person who was up for it could tap dance. And they were like, it's going to take us too long to teach you, so we're sorry, but off you go. And I obviously went, well, I'm going to go learn to tap dance then. And and that's kind of where that all began for me. And then went to Lanes as a kid, and then did all kind of ended up doing Oliver as Dodger, and then did a few more bits and pieces. But then I took a break from performing because I got quite ill, and So I went up to Leeds, did a music production degree, then came back to London, got a bit better. And then I ended up doing a reality TV show, something called Dance-X,
Nice.
many years ago now, just because I thought, why not? And yeah, so I ended up doing that. I got into the live shows, got kicked out the first week of the live shows, and then which was a shame, but hey ho.
Comedy gold now.
Comedy gold now. Like, what's quite nice as well is that it was kind of in the pre-YouTube era, so no shame is online. There's like a couple of clips of it, so I've managed to get away with that, I think, which was quite nice.
I've somehow not seen those.
Oh yeah, you never will.
Challenge.
You'll never find a clip of me doing my solo dance. It's not possible.
So we'd all love to see it, but it's a shame that they're lost forever now. It's just a bit of a shame.
Yeah, lost the archives.
The archive. Is it not like on a VHS tape or anything like that? Because there's technology now where you can sort of extract it and put it on a DVD.
I think I've got a DVD of it somewhere.
Oh, really?
It will never see the light of day.
Oh, you should release it as a Fit2Talk special or something. It's like, look at that.
No, don't suggest that. He'll make me do it.
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like genius.
All right.
Horrible idea.
What about you, Steffan? Any old videos of yourself, audition tapes, anything that you want to keep hidden away?
There's me when I was, because whilst Bobby was, treading the boards in the Palladium doing Oliver, wasn't it?
Yeah.
When he was
when I was 11.
When he was 11. At the same time, I was doing Oliver in my school, which is equally as prestigious. Yes, I think that was filmed and it was dreadful. I mean, I'm sure the rest of the people in it were fantastic, but I was poor.
Who were you playing in it?
Oliver.
Oh, you were Oliver?
Yes.
Right. You could have been the Oliver to my Dodger.
Yes, but I never auditioned. It was weird, right? Because of my dad, I would hear about auditions that were going on in the opera world. So you'd go, okay, well, you can audition to be one of the kids in Tosca now, or Magic Flute, whatever it was. But in order to get to an audition for the West End was 4 or 5 hours drive away.
Yeah.
And realistically, at that age, it was like, well, you can audition for these shows here or for those. And I think my parents kind of didn't want me to do it. I'm not too sure. They were very supportive, but at the same time, they weren't seeking it out for me.
Right.
So it's only if I asked. And at the same time, like, we had this weird thing with my dad. I never wanted my dad to take me to an audition in case they wanted to give me the job, because my dad was in that sort of realm. So really, at the age of 7, I'm worried about nepotism, which really isn't the. Really, I should have just rolled with it. I've got more jobs. But I really clearly remember that. I mean, not that my dad's a celebrity in the opera world, far from it, but if you're auditioning for the same company that he works for, I kind of didn't want them to know that there was a relation, because I wanted to know that if I got the job, it was because I was the person they wanted. Otherwise, I would feel like, imposter syndrome, I suppose. I didn't know that's what it would be called, but...
Yeah.
At the age of 11, you're like, oh, this is imposter syndrome.
Here it comes again. No, it's just use it to your advantage, man, because to take opportunities where you can, like in whatever the circumstances. So tell me about your experience with drama school, guys. So start with you, Bobby. What was Lane this like? What did the training sort of give you, and what did it take away?
So I was at Lane's only as a kid. Okay. I wanted to go there for the 3 years, but I was too ill to audition for dance school. So I ended up going to do my degree. But the experience I had as Lane's as a kid was incredible. I loved it. I feel very lucky that I got to go to Lane's as a kid, because I kind of got the same education that the full students got, but at the age of like 13, I was learning from the same teachers, doing a similar amount of dancing a week with them. And yeah, that's where I learned kind of everything. So my experience at Lane's was incredible. I think it was a lot more like old school and harsh back then. I remember some tap shoes being thrown at me.
Seriously?
Yeah. But it was like I don't know. I quite like that old school mentality. Obviously, I don't like getting tap shoes thrown at me, but
nobody likes it at the time.
No, but
No.
I feel like it kind of taught me a lot about discipline. It taught me a lot about really caring about what I do. So yeah, I think like my experience at Lanes was brilliant. I loved it there.
Great. What about you, Steffan, at Central?
Yeah, I think this is such an interesting topic, and we talk to our guests about it in the same way, obviously from a slightly different angle, but it's a tricky one because obviously I wouldn't be the performer I am today if it wasn't for that experience, that everything I learned there and all the doors that were opened because of it are unquantifiable really. But at the same time, it's problematic. Drama school has changed since then, and I think that's a positive thing. That old school mentality that Bobby was on about, this sort of tradition that drama school was there to break you down and then build you back up. That's the saying they used to say. And really, that was part of the experience of what happened there for us. At Central, it's quite small school years. There's 15 people in a year usually on that course. And they, people were broken down, and, the people teaching you aren't psychiatrists or psychologists. So they don't know how to build you back up. And the outcome of that is realistically trauma for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm not just speaking about Central, I'm speaking in general about a whole bunch
of course. Yeah.
But yeah, that so much a positive experience to come from it, and very old school acting teachers. You'd get up, and before you'd speak, we had an acting teacher who'd be like, "No, you're not ready, sit down," or be like, "That was shit." They'd just straight up say, "That was shit, sit down." And that was constant. Somebody cried in most classes. That was what drama school was.
Yeah.
But criticize it all you want, but those 15 people have been insanely successful. So there's people in leads in Hollywood movies from those 15. Like, that experience is, whilst it had negatives, it's hard to argue its level of success. Did it have casualties and trauma attached to it? Yes. It depends what your aim is, doesn't it? So the experience is conflicted. It's quite tricky to speak about in a way that has any one simple answer. It's sort of everything, a formative experience that changed my life and life path, I think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So I just finished at Guildford School of Acting, GSA, just last year. And it's absolutely right. You were saying there, Steffan, about how you go there to try and become a different version. Well, I don't suppose a different version of yourself. I don't want to go that extreme, but my experience was I went there and it took away a lot of insignificant insecurities that I had about, am I getting it right? Is this good enough? Et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's good that now I think it's very supportive. We had a very supportive cohort where people would say, okay, if you didn't get a monologue right, it's okay. You start again. You just have another go at it, which I think is good. And that tough love, I think, is, I've experienced it before, but it is helpful, but up to a point before you sort of get to a point where, you're crying in the corner or something and just try not to think that, oh God, the world's over. Everything's like, okay, calm down. It's all okay. It's all going to be fine. So in terms of like the training, as in drama school, not your fitness stuff, but which we'll get onto in a second, but what bits of the training did you find the most enjoyable, and what bits did you find the least enjoyable, the ones that you had to really work at to sort of really get to grips with?
I'll have this.
Because I've got nothing to add.
Oh, so I'm not singing you out, Bobby, or anything.
I think for me, I really struggled through first year of drama school. I arrived at this place, and realistically, I was behind in my perception. I think everybody sort of felt like this to an extent, is what I've learned afterwards. But in my perception, I was way miles behind everybody else, and that was, really, really tough. And then for me, animal studies is what really changed that, going through our teacher had trained at Lecoq in Paris and approached it from that internal acting method and going to explore from that point of view, which we did a bunch of clowning and animal studies. And it was when we started doing this that I started to piece together for me how to access versions of myself that were different. Whereas prior, all I was thinking about was the opinion of my peers and the people in the room, and I was just self-conscious, but I couldn't recognize that at the time. But it was just that inner voice being terrified of what they thought. And then this allowed me to access, to begin with, an animal version of myself that didn't care about those things. And it's something that I'm really passionate about now, because I think animal studies is one of those things that gets a bad rap from people as this like joke about drama school. And I teach now at drama schools, and it doesn't work for everybody in the same way that no method works for any one person, but it can certainly shatter some boundaries for performers who are finding blocks in different ways. And it's quite amazing when that happens, or you see that happen for a student. So that was definitely my way in, and a really memorable moment for me.
Great stuff. Great stuff. So let's talk about your fitness stuff, because both of you are certified personal trainers, and of course you do that alongside your acting stuff. So what made you guys want to get involved in the fitness side of things? I'll start with you, Bobby.
So I've kind of been doing fitness for all my life, obviously, because I've been a dancer. And I got really injured on a production of Singing in the Rain at Kilworth House. I broke my leg and dislocated my ankle during the show.
Ouch.
which was quite a spectacular event.
How did you do that, by the way?
It was literally the last thing in the show. We'd done the bows, we'd done the finale, and we were basically jumping off the stage, which is maybe like a foot high, and jumping off the stage and then running off into the undergrowth to leave the stage.
Okay.
And I jumped, and just my foot went from under me and just went. I sat up and was like, "Oh, my foot's pointing the wrong way." Whipped off my welly and sat back down.
Ouch.
Yeah, so that kind of happened, and I went and had surgery, and then had a bunch of physio. And like my initial physio was like, "We'll probably be able to get you to walk with a limp. That's probably where we'll get you to." And I was a bit like, I need a little bit more than that, just because I want to be dancing. And then I went to some amazing physios at a place called Bounce in Wimbledon, and they put my leg back together essentially. And they kind of inspired me. And I was like, you know what? I love fitness, and I love going to the gym, and I love the idea of being able to help people in that sense. So then off the back of that, I was like, well, I'm out of action for a year before I can dance again properly. So why don't I go train as a personal trainer? So I went off, did my personal training course, still like hobbling around. I was in a boot for half of it. But yeah, and that's kind of where it all began. And it's been probably the greatest. I kind of say this quite a lot, like breaking my leg in that show, although it being a traumatic incident, is probably one of the best things that's ever happened to me in the long run, because it changed so much about my life and about the way I approach performing, the way my like go-to work outside of performing. It changed so much that it's been a really kind of pivotal moment for me.
Steffan?
It was really interesting to hear you chat about that, because we've obviously spoken about these things previously, but never in relation to one another in this way.
Yeah.
Like if we've spoken about that event, then we've spoken about that event, and sort of, you don't look to compare when you're having those conversations. And actually, in relation to this question, I hadn't realized before that actually our driving force into this realm is actually quite similar. For me as a kid, I was always quite active. Did judo to a pretty high level when I was younger, then went through free running and a whole bunch of different physical pursuits, but it was never, that was always just fun. But then I discovered when I was 17, 18, that I had something wrong with my heart. We didn't really know what that was. And then found out quite how bad that was rather viscerally about a year after that, when things went south quite quickly. And like you said, got very ill. And it looked pretty bleak for a period of time. And then, in a relatively long recovery process from that, in which, I didn't handle that too well. In the same way, I didn't immediately find something to fix that. What I did do was, I had sort of doctors saying to me, don't go anywhere by yourself and don't do anything that raises your blood pressure. And I was like, well, that's everything. So that doesn't allow me a life. And I was like, well, I can either do what you're telling me to and cease to exist, or I can try out a couple of theories and see if they work that are the opposite. And that led me to try and train my heart as a muscle and my body around it to see if I could defy what they believed. And not that I'm advocating that people do that. The outcome was positive, and I did manage to do that. And so since that point, it's been about trying to push that boundary, understand more about my body. And then over time, that became, I've actually learned quite a lot about this. How can I change this into helping other people get the outcome they want with their bodies and feeling and function in the same way? And so, eventually when the opportunity arose to do a personal training course, I was like, I'm going to jump on that, and never looked back. I've never found an out of acting job that I loved. I use the word loved. I've really enjoyed some stuff, but I've never thought of it as really connected to me in any way. I've found great joy. We've both done a ton of promo work and a ton.
Yes, we have.
And a bunch of other crazy things. The list of jobs is genuinely endless.
There's always a new job that I discover. You've
done some weird stuff, man.
Some weird stuff.
And
Very weird stuff.
And they're all great and fabulous. And then when you find this and you realize that you can do something that affects other people really positively forever, it's quite a moment, I think. And then you go, this is worth my time and effort. And it's something that we share. It's the reason we created this company, I think, that we end up going, we can make a change in this for people. Our industry doesn't have to be the same way. It doesn't have to be like it is now. Like we can shift it. So that's a really small goal.
But big meaning though. Big meaning for that. It's I'm just curious to know about some of your fitness success stories. Is there like particular group or of clients or clients that you guys have had that you've really got a lot out of the training, and you were very proud of what you gave them in a way, both with the advice on what to do in the gym as well as like any other advice around food or anything?
For me, I think when I kind of started Bobby's Bakery during the lockdown, that's been a moment for me. That's one of the more surreal moments in my life.
You were famous.
I was weirdly Insta famous for a while, and it's I don't know. I don't know why it kind of started, and I don't know kind of how it became what it was, but it's. I find it difficult. Lots of people come up to me now, like these days, and are like, the bakery saved me over lockdown. And I find it difficult to kind of know what to say to that, because I'm like, it saved me as well. Like it was that thing of, it was a kind of beautiful thing of being able to go for this, like half an hour a day, we're all going to come together. We're all going to do something where fitness doesn't have to be boring. This is kind of, in my head, I go, this is kind of like the seed of that. I go, it doesn't, like, people were doing, there were workouts online, there were lots of workouts kind of everywhere, but I think what set that apart was that it didn't have to be this serious thing. It didn't have to be a punishment. It didn't have to be something to be feared. It was just us getting together for half an hour and taking our minds off the horrifying thing that was going on in the world, and let's chat about croissants and baked goods and talk about Greggs and all the different Greggs that are opening up. So
Amazing.
like for me, that's kind of a beautiful moment in my life where kind of personal training and being a fitness instructor has really kind of come through for me and for other people.
Yeah. That was such a huge moment. It's the first way I heard of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It is, for me, it's tricky because we train all kinds of people, right? And there's such amazing benefit to all of them. There's a couple of things I really love. Like I've had a fair few clients who've been, really out of shape or that little bit older. And when you have those people who, let's say the people who are far, far heavier than they've ever been before. I had one client who her whole family used to mock her when she sat down because she would fall. She couldn't, sit without falling. Yeah. And the day came about that no longer happened anymore and they stopped laughing at her. And that things like that, or clients when you're looking at 50, 60-year-olds and plus, regaining function that they had in their 20s and going, I haven't been able to do this for 40 years. That's amazing. But really what's relevant to us, I think, is when we train performers and, you go recently, a client of mine is now the lead in a West End show and was training with me up to the point they started in order to get themselves prepped for that. And now goes, my feed into that show was easy because of the training we did. Like, okay, that's the point, right? Or people get jobs because of that training. You go, right, we've been working out so that you can go and do 2 dance calls back to back and it not phase you. And this was about 5 months ago. That client got offered both of those jobs and is now on the Bat Out of Hell World Tour. And you're like, amazing. Yeah. And they're there going, well, this is because I could handle 2 back-to-back 2-hour dance calls on that day. You're like, then their successes become things that you're involved in and proud of, and you're a tiny, tiny piece in it. But I think there's an amazing sense of pride that comes for me last one when you manage something like that. So it's not necessarily a specific group, though obviously we know a lot about life as a performer. Yeah. But I think there's any success, whatever that person's goal is, when you help them achieve it.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. In one episode with our mutual friend, actually, Elliot Harper, who's currently Miss Trunchbull in town at the moment, you guys touched on how when you're trying to reach certain goals, like for some clients that they want to be defined or they want to look like Muhammad Ali or something like that, you follow your genetics plays a huge part in the body that you want to create in a way. But the sad thing is, if you want to look like Muhammad Ali and do the same thing that he does, but you do everything that he does, but you don't end up looking like that, it's because your genetics simply won't allow you to do that. In a way, that's not how you're made. So it doesn't matter how much of Muhammad Ali stuff you do, you can't do it because your genetics have other ideas in mind. Is that correct?
I'd go with partially. I think genetics are your scaffolding, right? And the rest of what you do and how you live is the meat of the building that you exist in. So if you're looking at somebody like Muhammad Ali, or it's probably easier as an analogy to use somebody more modern, somebody like Cristiano Ronaldo, for instance, who has spent 30 years spending all his time with the best people teaching him football skills and practicing for X amount of time each day with the best training, then he has his genetic potential. And then he's done everything possible for 30 years to make his body achieve the potential for his goal, which was to be fantastic at football. Now, you might have somebody who's got more genetic potential than him, arguably quite a lot of people. But if they come to that at 15, then they're 10 years behind. Chances of them reaching the same level, slim. It doesn't mean it's not worth doing. Like, yes, your body won't look like his because your scaffolding is a different shape. And your ability to build muscle is different, or the way your brain fires neurons through and builds muscle patterns different because we learned in different ways. So kind of, but still, Tom Brady always says that he, arguably the greatest quarterback of all time.
Don't arguably me. He is the greatest
of all time. He openly says genetically not gifted. It's not necessarily true because his family all had, broad shoulders, and there's a gift there. But what was he drafted? 130?
He was right down. Like he never. You kind of looked at him in the draft and you thought, this guy's never going anywhere.
Yeah, and he was 21 by then.
Yeah,
at that point, and through hard work and dedication, even though his genetics didn't necessarily set him up for that level of success, effective work has become, without a doubt, some might argue, the very best in that field in the entire world. So whilst you go, yes, maybe not, maybe the genetics are going to be slightly limiting factors, there's always a huge range of possibility within your genetic framework. That's what I think about.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with kind of everything you said there. And I like to think of it this way, in the same way that we say to performers, go be your performer, go be you as a performer. The same with fitness. There's no point trying to compare yourself necessarily to somebody else, because you may not be able to achieve that version because of one of their genetic makeup, but also because of their lived experience, of the way they've trained for many, many years. You need to just go and be your version of that. So train for you, don't train to be anybody else.
Yes,
that's very good. So that's a good. It is. Yeah,
I just came up on the spot. There's nothing in that.
Perfect. It's great. So that's a good lead into something you mentioned, Steffan, about how someone was able to keep their stamina through like the dance calls that you just mentioned there, one of your clients. So what advice, we've probably touched on this a little bit already, but what advice would you give to actors who love going to the gym? So for example, if they like doing a lot of cardio, they like lifting weights and deadlifts, etc., they have a workout which uses a lot of energy in them, and they do it first thing in the morning, then they go to rehearsal and they might have a lot to do physically. So what advice would you have for anyone who's in that position at the moment, who's in work and loves to go to the theatre and who's working and wants to make sure they're not burning themselves out too early before they get to rehearsal in a way, guys?
Can I start this off?
You go for gold.
You have as much energy as you put into your body. So if you are going to use more energy in the day, you need to consume more energy. If you are going to go to the gym before a rehearsal day, you damn well better eat enough to fuel that, or you're going to flag. And when you're in the gym, if you're training appropriately, your muscles aren't going to fatigue to the point where halfway through the day you can't carry on your rehearsal process. If you are, then you're probably not doing the right thing for you in that time. So let's assume that your training is appropriate for your job and you've got the right information and a right program for you. Then it's quite simple. Then you need to eat to fuel that thing. So then you don't have a problem. So realistically, I think what you're describing is actually a problem that people deal with quite a lot, but because they don't have the information about how to fuel themselves appropriately for what they're doing. So then people go, oh, my body can't handle that, so I can't go to the gym before a rehearsal day. And you're like, okay, but you probably could if you were doing the right thing for the right amount of time for you and fueling yourself properly. That's my thoughts on it. Do you have anything?
I totally agree with all of that. I think the one thing I would also add is always listen to your body. Like, your body is the best feedback tool that you have. You'll know if you're managing that balance right, if you're looking after yourself, if you're consuming the right food, if you're fueling yourself in the right way. So listen to your body. That's always going to be your guiding light in terms of what you should be doing.
Oh, I thought of an exception.
Go.
Based on what you just said, which is, let's say you go into a physically really demanding show. For instance, like you mentioned, comedy about bank robbery that I did once, was like, that was physically actually a step up on my physical capabilities at the time. That means I'm going to be putting my body under considerable stress in a new way during that rehearsal process. That means going and putting the muscles or joints under additional stress in the morning is probably not a good idea, because recovery has become more important. So that way, Food's going to help you recover and refuel, obviously, but you actually need to let your muscles recover. So what Bobby was saying about listening to your body, don't just go and hammer at it anyway. Whereas if you dance 8 times a week anyway, and you're going into a show, then you should be able to supplement that in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got, whether it's new stimulus as well, as an exception. But sorry if that got a bit technical.
Science.
Science.
It's all
Science.
good. It's all good, man. So awesome. So I'm just curious to know about, in one episode you guys have is all about cardio, and I think the title of the episode is called Cardio No as a result. And some people say that there seems to be like a debate about cardio. Is it good for losing weight, or should you not use it at all? Or if you want to lose weight, don't do cardio? What is the debate about cardio, and what's the truth in a way?
I'm going to let you answer this. I'm going to preface this by saying cardio has a fantastic amount of benefits.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And yeah, the benefits are huge from cardio. However, for the purposes of weight loss, over to Steffan.
Jump in. We'll get real specific.
Yeah.
Current guidelines say 75 minutes to 75 minutes of vigorous cardio exercise a week, or 150 minutes of light cardio. Now that can be a pacey walk, right? Mm-hmm. During the week. Yeah. 75 minutes of a maybe quicker jog, whatever suits you. Really, really, really excellent for your health, mentally, the way your body functions, and your fitness. With regards to weight loss, it is a terrible strategy for weight loss. Here's why. He's gearing up for this.
I'm ready for it.
Here we go.
Our bodies, my favorite phrase, are physical adaptation machines. We are designed to adapt to the stimulus that we give this vessel that we live in. Now, cardio makes our body react in a really specific way, that we get better at cardio. It makes perfect sense when you hear it like that. It's logical, which means essentially we become more efficient at it the more we do it. It's the same with most things. So let's say you go for a run for half an hour, 3 times a week. If you're doing that for your mental health and fitness, fantastic. Well done. Job done. Mm-hmm. If you're doing it to lose weight, then you're probably thinking about how many calories you burn during that time period. Great. Within 4 weeks, you run for 30 minutes, 3 times a week, and you burn fewer calories doing that than you did 4 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Quite a lot fewer. That's how we can adapt to run things like marathons without dying. And that's why if you took somebody who had never ran and asked them to run a marathon, they'd likely die. Like that's the outcome. So very rapidly, the amount of cardio you have to do gets exponentially greater. You spend more time over and over, and that never ends. The cycle never ends. It's why Mo Farah can run a marathon a day. It's why people can run 365 marathons. And again, they're not losing weight. They're not stick thin. And it's not because they're eating 7,000 calories a day, though they might be. Because they've adapted to burn fewer calories doing that, which is the opposite response that we want, right? We actually want our body to burn more calories and do less. And that's what happens when you do resistance training. We should say that weightlifting is a specific sport. Resistance training is picking stuff up in interesting ways and putting them back down again. That builds muscle, and the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn by being sat on your butt all day. So if I build up an extra 4 kilos of muscle on my frame, then I'm going to sit on my ass and watch, hopefully I can say ass, and watch Netflix for an entire day off. And the amount of calories I'm going to burn in that day is significantly increased from where we were at. So if you want long-term to sustain a healthy, lovely diet where you can eat what you want, then you need to build a little bit of muscle from where you are, and you will burn fat by having that on your frame. Cardio, fantastic. We love it. I'm currently training for a marathon, so I'm doing a lot of cardio, but just don't to lose weight. Terrible plan.
There you go.
Very long answer. Sorry.
That's very, very good answer. Very good answer. So let's take it back to acting stuff for the time being. I see that the two of you have been on tour with a couple of your productions and stuff. I've had a few people on talking about how one of the challenges about touring is the different locations, and you're learning essentially where the light switch is in the latest hotel room and stuff like that, and adapting yourself to a new stage. Like the one you did in one town or one city was bigger, the next one is smaller, so you have to figure out what to do. What's sort of like the challenges of touring, and also the benefits of touring as well that you guys have experienced?
Challenges.
I think, do you know what? I think everything you've just said is both a benefit and a challenge to touring. What's wonderful about touring and what I've loved about it is seeing different parts of the UK, different parts of the world, experiencing different audiences, getting completely different vibes depending on where you are with the same show, a completely different response. Like it's wonderful, and it's wonderful to be able to take a show around the country and just kind of deliver it to various parts of the country. And I've loved touring, and I would never want to kind of undo the touring that I've done. It is hard. It's really hard. And kind of the more you do it, the more you realize it's difficult to be away from your home, difficult to be away from your family. This kind of stress it puts on relationships is incredibly difficult. And just the schedule, like it's just a different beast. And like lots has been spoken about recently about digs, and rightly so, because digs are a nightmare. If you can end up in just some absolutely horrific digs, and we've spoken about this before. Like one time I was in digs where there was a person eating a watermelon in a bathroom. So it's kind of
Was it you?
It wasn't exactly. I do love watermelon, but it wasn't me eating the watermelon. But yeah, digs are a major kind of downfall of touring. But one beautiful thing about touring, which I think, which I really love compared to doing, say, a show in town, is the feeling you have as a company, as a cast. It feels completely like a family, because again, this is another downfall, but a beautiful thing to it. You are completely in that bubble of being on tour, and it's the bubble is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. But it's like the closeness you have after such a short period of time of being on tour with people is like it's wonderful. And I've met some amazing people on tours over the years, and become incredibly close with them in a very short period of time. And I wouldn't trade that for anything.
The only thing I'd add to that is that, if you end up in a situation, if you're in a show in town or near where you live, wherever that might be, then you can go to work and go home. If you end up on a tour and you don't get along with the people that you work with, nightmare. Then you're going, I'm traveling the country with these people. They're now my family, and actually they're not my people. I've seen that happen sometimes, and it's a torture, because we don't have a way out of contracts as actors. No. So if you sign up 20-month job, like that's what I did on Matilda, that was 20 months, and you realize within 2 months that you're pretty much alone in this, that's going to be a rough ride for the next year and a half of your life. So there's that aspect too. That wasn't my experience. I was really, really super lucky, and I've been pretty lucky on all my jobs. I think you have too, right? Yeah, I mean, I've kind of experienced kind of the highs and the lows of touring in the sense that you're talking about. In that some of the tours I've done, I've had the most amazing time, but there has been a tour where I've had a horrible time on, and I've felt very isolated, and it's the one time I've ever kind of stood on a stage and gone, I want to be anywhere else but here. And then, like to experience that and to look back on that and go, that is how I felt at that moment, and that's something I've never felt before, was kind of quite eye-opening, and I'm glad that's done. I'm glad I'm not doing that right now. Do you know what? I toured as a kid from a really young age. So I actually started touring when I was 7, something like that. And around the UK to like big theatres, like Mayflower, Southampton, all of those ones. And that is amazing. Because when you go around as a kid, obviously you don't have to sort your own digs out. They sort that. He looks after you the whole time. You get to do fun stuff. They teach you, and they pay for all your food.
Happy days.
Kids on Joseph were having the best time.
It's fantastic. I'd recommend it.
Very good, very good. There's a question you asked again in Elliot's episode. Actually, I think we were talking about there, Bobby, about if you're in a company and you do find yourself isolated, and sometimes you're. I think in this industry in general, mental health is such a huge thing, and how to protect it. And so I'm sorry to say, I'm just going to steal your question that you asked Elliot, and ask you this: how do you protect your mental health, like in tricky times, like if you're on a tour and you don't get along with the company, or you're say 7 months into a run of Matilda or something like that, and you don't get the same joy from the material? If like, I'm assuming, I'm not saying that was your experience, but if you don't get the same joy and experience of a show like from the first couple of months that you were in it, so how do you protect your mental health in the tricky times?
Well, to jump in on the joy thing, I think that is really common. In fact, Matilda was one of the ones I can say that genuinely wasn't the case. Like I actually really genuinely,
sure.
the last show of that found something new in that every time, because I think it's genius. But I have experienced that you're speaking about, and I think something you say often is that everyone's going to have a different version of an answer to this question. But as far as advice goes, therapy is more accessible than ever before now, especially because of what happened during 2020 with lockdown. Therapy over Zoom is now commonplace, and actually we're seeing a lot more performers take advantage of that and jump into that. However, there is obviously cost associated with that. It is expensive. And we've spoken a bit about the fact that in shows, your company manager is the person you're meant to go to when you have a problem, it's mental or otherwise. And yet the company manager is also the person that feeds that back to the producers and decides whether you go on or not.
Right. So
for me anyway, there's a clear discrepancy in if I'm struggling mentally, what's my motivation? Why would I go and tell my company manager that, who is the person who might be able to help, but also who is likely to influence my career negatively because of that in that instance? And I actually think there needs to be a little shift in that sense. Those two things need to become separate within a company in order that you have somebody taking care of the cast and somebody managing the company in a different way. I'm not always one for splitting jobs up and creating, bureaucratic nonsense, but there's no, if you've hurt yourself in a show, it's the same thing. You go, I'm struggling a bit, but if you go to the company manager, they might take you off the show, and actually what you wanted was to go to a physio. And so they need to be different things. But anyway, that doesn't really answer your question. We've got anything to...
No, it's great. It's great.
The thing I've always thought is, and I've said this about kind of performing in general, what I think is huge is having something you care about that isn't performing. Having something outside of performing that you truly love, whatever that may be. Because I think too often a lot of performers invest their entire heart and soul and everything they've got into performing. And while it is a wonderful career and a wonderful thing to love, and I love it dearly, I would also say it can't be everything to you. You need to have other things in your life that are important. And do you know, and this is one thing that fitness has given me, is just an absolute love of fitness, a love of being a personal trainer. And when I'm not enjoying a show, when I'm struggling on that, I will carry on doing my absolute professional best on the show, because that's what I want to be. I want to give the show everything I've got. But outside of that, I will speak to my friends, speak to my wife, look at NFL videos, like things that I care about outside of performing become all the more important at that point.
I think a sense of progression is really the thing that you can, attribute that to, isn't it? That your life continues and you continue to grow as a person, so that you don't feel like you're back to square one and starting fresh each time. That just feels like rubbish.
Magnificent. No, that's brilliant, guys. I couldn't put it better myself. That's fantastic. So I'm curious, who's your NFL team?
The Giants.
The Giants. Okay. I don't follow NFL, but I'm just curious.
I'm obsessed with NFL and
Really?
NBA as well. I'm like,
Is that Super Bowl?
It is Super Bowl weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch the Super Bowl, which is devastating.
Oh no! Who's in it this year? Who's the teams?
It is. Oh, that's a good question. It's the Niners and the Eagles.
Okay.
Oh, no, not the Niners. Sorry. Oh, that's bad. The Chiefs and the Eagles. The Chiefs and the Eagles. The Niners lost.
So don't put that clip in.
Don't put that clip in. My Super Bowl pick, which is definitely going to be old and bad, is the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are going to win. I trust Patrick Mahomes. He is the baby goat, after all.
You did say that to me about 2 years ago.
He is the baby goat. He is going to win the Chiefs the Super Bowl.
Yeah. It's like another language to me. NFL stuff. I don't get it at all. So yeah, that's great, guys. Thank you for that. The mental health thing there. That was fantastic. I really appreciate that. Just change the narrative just slightly. You talked about earlier, Bobby, about your foot, and you had that unfortunate accident on stage and singing in the rain. But Chris, what other stories do you have on stage that things have gone wrong, or funny moments that you have?
Things that have gone wrong.
How long have you got?
I've got
so much goes wrong.
As long as you want.
Oh my god! Well, as far as injuries, everything's happened. Everything injury wise. I've torn ACL, MCL. I got dropped from the ceiling. Broken ribs by a platform. Like I've broken up most of my fingers, my hand, like elbow. Like if you can think about it, it's happened. But if you're looking for funny stories.
Funny stories. I've seen people falling off stage and not seriously injuring themselves, but people like falling. I was in Doncaster at the Donny Dome, and one of my friends, I just saw him at the back of the stage, and I was stood in the wing, and I just saw him slow motion, like wheeling off. What else?
Here's one. Oh God. In comedy about a bank robbery, right? Everything in the show is so fast and so pacey, and obviously it's fast, so it has to be quick. Yeah. Anyway, there was a scene where I'd been drugged, and so I was meant to be passed out, and then they would run into the office, like put me on this chair, and I had no trousers on or socks at the time, so I was like just in pants. And they put me on this thing, and then this really, really small office would eventually, within 3 minutes or so, have about 7 people trying to move around in it. That was part of the comedy of this thing. And they were all pretending to be other people. The door would slam loads. Anyway, I get put into this chair, and the person putting me into the chair whispers in my ear and says, "There's pins all over the floor."
Uh-oh.
And I was like, what? And I knew that I had to fall to that floor when those came in. So I was like, oh God. And then they had to run out. So I was left in this room while the scene is being played out in front of me. And I looked down with my upstage eye going, there's about 300 drawing pins on this floor.
What?
A box of them had been put on the side and obviously been hit off as this thing came on.
Yeah.
In some way. And I was like, I need to move these pins. How do I do this? And obviously I'm meant to be asleep. So they're like trying to use my foot subtly with no... on my feet to move these pins across. I think I managed to get like 2/3 of them out of the way. And obviously the audience, if they could see me, would be like, why is he moving his foot? It's weird. And then like when they came in, I had to like not fall properly to the floor. But with shows like that, there's 100 things that go wrong.
Yeah.
All the time.
Stuff goes wrong constantly. And you know what? Sometimes the stuff that's the funniest is it's just you say it and it's so you're like, that's not funny, but in the moment it's like one time we were doing Thoroughly Modern Millie, and we did a dance break, and somebody came on. They'd gotten changed too early, and they came on in tap shoes in the middle of this dance break. So then they were doing the dance break, and all we could hear was they were doing it. I was like, this is too much. This is too much. I can't.
It is the stuff that you shouldn't laugh at. Like in that, I had like a long period of time. But the one that really, really, really got me and like broke me, and I couldn't carry on the show was when I did Joseph the first time, and they had these sheep that would blow up sheep at the back of this stage right on the set, and at a point they would blow up, be inflated, and they would look at each other, and one of these sheep just its ass blew up out of the floor, and the rest of it just stayed deflated. And because it wasn't deflated, it kept like moving, like it was stuck in the ground, like ass out, trying to get out of the ground. The entirety of this number, that's not that funny. I can appreciate that's
I would love that.
Like that's like mildly funny. But when you're trying to play this sheep like it's a real sheep, giving all of your energy to going like, this is my sheep, you just find yourself crying over stuff that realistically isn't that funny.
Yeah, it wasn't. I just get this image like he got this inflatable sheep just twerking at the back of the stage.
That's exactly what was happening before twerking was a thing.
Yeah, when you did, so if you did you corpse after that? Did you? Yeah. So when that happens, do you just? I think I've been in the audience for some things when the actors have corpsed, and the audience loves it. I think that they really get behind it. Because did the audience that night really take to it? Do they enjoy it?
I think with Joseph, it never ends. So there's never enough to do that. I think, yes, in general, as a rule for this, I think if the audience is in on the joke, then it's kind of fine. Yeah. Whereas if you're corpsing for any reason that they don't understand, it's not really fun anymore as an audience. You're there watching it like, well, you're having fun. Like I went to watch a show relatively recently, it shall remain nameless, and some of the people on the stage at one point, obviously there was something going on between them and they were trying to make each other laugh. These are well-known people and they did, and they were unable to say some of their lines or sing their things. And the entire audience was just like, well, I can't get involved in this. So I think it's fine if they're involved in it in some way.
Either they're involved in it or you have to hide it from them impeccably. Like if you're going to do something like that, they should never know.
Bingo.
Absolutely.
Be better.
be better.
Still do it, but you just got to be better.
I was in a show as a kid, and it was like a very serious scene, and the lead actor, who was a celebrity, them and another actor were just absolutely in hysterics. They just broke down in hysterics, and I have no idea why, but like they couldn't get through the scene to the point that they had to stop the scene. It's big show, and they were like, "We're so sorry, we can't stop laughing. We're gonna have to stop. We're gonna have to stop." I was stood there as a child going, "What do I do? What is this?
What's going on?"
I've definitely been there in that situation where you go, I'm corpsing. Like often, do you know what I mean? I'm not coming from a place of judgment when I say that. Just as an audience, you know that's what your aim is, isn't it? To go like if you crack on a note or you say the wrong line or you say a word funny and then someone else laughs, like as the audience, they're part of that. Like completely involved. Like that's cool. Whereas, you know, the stuff that used to go on. You know, when you look in the wings and somebody's doing something to make you laugh in the wing, for instance, and then you can't continue.
That's the thing. What's funny is when it's something that happens by accident or something. Just if you're planning it for it to be funny, it's never going to be as funny.
That's right. I do have a story actually. I won't say the names of the people, but they shall remain nameless. But we at university, one of our final things we had to do was a public show, and we adapted this text called Bluette. It's written by someone called Maggie Nelson, and we got the scene together, and then thankfully an audience wasn't in. This was the tech run, and our course convener was in watching the show. He hadn't seen any of it up to that point. So basically we had these two tables on the other side of the stage, and on stage left, there was the guy sitting on that table had to ting a glass, and then the following action would happen, from what I remember. But on this particular run, he was in a bit of a rush. So he's rushing around on this table. We're in the show. We're there showing our course convener what's happening. And then he goes to ting the glass. He's in a rush, and he flicks his hand over, knocks the glass over, and it smashes into a million pieces across the stage. And my first reaction was, "Oh God, oh shit, okay." I was backstage, like, "Oh God, what now? What now?" And then the following action happened, and we had a narrator person on stage, and he started to say his lines, and he was like, serial killers, and it was just laughing throughout his lines. And the worst thing was I had to go sit next to him on stage, and he was just there just trying not to laugh, which made me laugh. And I was just like, shut the fuck up. Don't make me laugh.
Someone desperately trying not to laugh is what will get me the most.
It's when you feel somebody shaking next to you. You're like, oh, I'm done.
We had a bit like that in Joseph, didn't we? There was a little bit for a period of time where one of us was shaking laughing. I can't remember what it was.
I can't remember what that was, but I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember.
I can remember that, but
but
I don't remember why.
I remember the feeling, but I don't remember why we were laughing at.
That was fantastic.
You got to get through the day somehow.
There's always something.
There's always something there. I'm just curious, just jumping back to your fitness stuff, guys. Just a quick fire question for you. What's your favorite cheat meal?
I've got a really boring answer for you.
Yeah.
You're not gonna like it.
What? Go ahead.
I don't believe in a cheat meal in the sense that not going, oh, you shouldn't cheat on your diet. Why do you not have permission to eat that stuff anyway? I'm like, every single day I eat stuff that surprises people, I think. And it's exactly the same for you. I'm like, literally, last night I had Terry's chocolate orange and, a couple of good mix on our podcast. And I literally it's not a cheat, it's part of my diet. So sorry, that's straight.
This is the
thing. No, it's good to know.
There's no such thing as a healthy food, only a healthy diet.
Yeah.
So we never talk about cheat meals in that sense. But But if we're talking about what food I love, let me tell you all the foods I love.
Go ahead.
I just love burgers. For real, burgers are my favorite food.
And for me, I really, really, really love Indian food.
Yeah.
So without a doubt, I could sit and when I go to an Indian, I want to order 3 curries, rice, naan, and a side dish of some kind as well. Have them all in front of me, eat what I want, and go nuts. I just love the flavor. So maybe that's sort of in the realm of what you're describing, but in general, if 20% of what I'm eating in a day is probably suboptimal, then I'm pretty happy with that.
That's good. That's good to know, actually, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about fitness and food, and about how if you eat one bad thing, you've ruined your goals, or you've ruined everything that you've done in the gym a few hours beforehand. But it's good to hear that there are a lot of myths around it, and you've very, very clearly debunked them for everyone who's listening. So that's good to know.
Can we throw in a shameless promo?
Go ahead.
In 2 weeks, 2 weeks time, 3 weeks time, can't remember. In a couple of weeks, in a period of time, we've got an ebook resource coming out called Eat to Perform.
Okay.
This feels like I'm selling it to people. I don't like this. Called Eat to Perform, which is for performers. And it's literally doing exactly what you've just mentioned. So debunking a whole bunch of myths and giving them a usable guidebook, a toolkit, like you described it earlier on, to know and understand for their own body how they should eat, and when, how much, and what to supplement it with, everything that you'd need to know to create a diet for yourself that you're happy with and that fuels you well.
What he said.
Simple as that. Depending on when you actually release this, Oliver, it's probably available in 2 to 3 weeks' time. If you head over to the Instagram, then you can click that link in the bio and grab that lovely, lovely ebook.
Fantastic. And so I'm going to ask this question anyway. This is a really dumb question for me. Where would they be able to access it? So would you be able to? So there'll be a link on your Instagram page, and then it will take you to the website, and you'll be able to download it from there.
Yeah, pretty much
exactly that.
Yeah, cool. I'm saying very obvious there.
That's not a dumb question at all. They're never a dumb question. Obviously, I did not say that well. Yeah, there'll be a link, or you could go straight to the website, which is fit-2.co.uk, or obviously find us on Instagram at fit2_talk. I don't know what it is. Fit2_talk.
That is correct.
Cool. I'll put in the description. I'll say look out for the ebook coming in 2 to 3 weeks time. So that'd be good. So I'm just thinking about, in that ebook, do you think you'll have, there's that stigma meal of chicken, rice, and greens for any diet. Does that get the thumbs up or the thumbs down in your estimations?
I mean, again, without going into like, for some people that would be good. I've certainly never eaten dried chicken, dry rice, and broccoli. So I'm certainly not recommending that to other people. Like, realistically, what we give you is the tools to work with your current diet, and step by step turn that into something that is slightly more optimal for you. Thoughts?
Yeah, again, I think it's just like it's the idea of getting rid of some certain like buzzwords like clean eating, cheat meals, things like that. These things need to get in the bin. Get in the bin. Because it's I think you've kind of said everything that needs to be said about it, really, Steffan. But like, the idea that you can eat clean is a crazy idea to me, and it's also not a sustainable way. A lot of what we speak about in the podcast and what we speak about in the Eat to Perform ebook and kind of our mantra in general is about creating a sustainable diet and a sustainable way of exercising and looking after yourself, because it shouldn't be a short-term thing. This is our lives, it's our careers, it's our everything. So we want to create the kind of most sustainable, ethically viable.
I think there's something about performers, right, that in performance we tend to strive for perfect, right? And knowing that it's not attainable. But realistically, most performers know that they will never have a perfect performance, but you're still striving towards it. What else can I do to get there? And with your diet, I think accepting that it will never be perfect is essential. You're not aiming for perfect. You're aiming for healthy. And healthy doesn't mean perfect. Like it doesn't. Healthy doesn't mean chicken, rice, and broccoli 5 times a week. Like it just doesn't, because it's miserable. And there's a great joy in food, and you should have that joy. Like, have that joy in your life. What a miserable life to remove the joy from food. No, thank you.
Exactly. No, this is great, guys. It's great to it speaks a lot to your versatility, guys. You'll be able to give acting advice as well as fitness as well, and this has been a really, really great thing to hear from both of you. So thanks for that. Just got 2 more questions for you today, if that's all right. So let me just have a look. I can't read my own writing from here. Hang on, just bear with me. Ideal actors, blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. So second to last question, really. Obviously, you're still actively working in the industry. You're doing your fitness and everything, so you've still got a lot more to look forward to. But in terms of everything up to this current moment in the acting industry, what do you think the jobs that you've done, the experiences that you've had, for better or for worse, what do you think it's given you so far, and what do you think it has taken away?
I think for me, for what it's given me is people. Like the people that I've met along the way have been so influential in my life and are such a big part of my life. Like, I think the people is the most important part, because yes, it's wonderful what we do on stage, but actually you get to spend that time on stage with other people, and it's those interactions, it's those friendships that you make along the way that really kind of are the beautiful part of our career. Like, I can't imagine my life now without Steffan, without other friends of mine.
Sam,
I did, and I met my wife as well doing the show. So I think just the people is what makes it special, and that's the one thing that I will always love about this career.
Same. I met Maddie because of a show I was in. Like, I'm with you with the people. I think with the stuff that it takes away, stability, money, realistically, any idea of a conventional time frame to your life, you're probably going to need to dedicate 10, 15, 20 years to this and everything all in before you do things like have a family. I wish that wasn't the case, but realistically, if you're 24 and you graduated at 21 and you go, oh, I actually want to have a kid now, it's probably going to negatively affect your career, male or female, in some way. That's really sad, but
it's
look
the truth.
at
It's the truth.
and you start thinking about that when you're 30, 35, but rather than 23 for what appears to be, dare I say, most people, but a more conventional aspect. So if you want a stable income and a nice, lovely family life really, really early on, probably not going to go that way. It's not impossible, but for certainly the case for most, I would suggest.
Amazing. And just to finish, guys, what's been an experience or experiences that you've had in your career up to this day that you'll never, ever going to forget?
Oh. If I say I can't remember any, is it?
That's okay. If you can't think of any.
Well, like shows I'll never forget is Peter Pan in Bromley, Churchill, like 15, 16 years ago when I met Sam, my wife. I met some of my best friends on that show as well. That's a truly special show for me.
Absolutely.
Also, I had a moment when we were doing Joseph together and I was stood at the front doing Canaan Days and I was like, this is madness.
Yeah.
It was like, this is a moment I was like, wow, this is truly ridiculous. That was an amazing moment for me. Another moment recently that I can't talk about. but yes.
I'm with you, actually. I didn't really think about stuff when I was performing until Comedy About a Bank Robbery, and I've said this before to you. I was stood on the stage at the end of the show, and we were at the Criterion in the West End. It was the first play I'd done in the West End, and my parents were there, and it was the curtain call. And I just sort of done the show and not really thought about it, and they were there like clapping, and everybody was on their feet, and it literally hit me like a hammer blow of being like, I've just played the lead in a play in the West End that's on for a year and my parents are watching. And I was like, oh, like 18-year-old me would be weeping with joy, and I that did sort of overtake me. And actually, yeah, you're right. I had a similar moment in Joseph. You're at the Palladium, which is the theatre, really. It's one of the most well-known across the world. Maybe the globe. And you're there with whatever it is, 2,000, 3,000 people, I don't know how many it is, watching you finish a number that you've just sang, and they go nuts, and it's full, and you're like, oh, I'm doing this.
I think Joseph was particularly special because it was post-COVID. It was the first time we'd all been back on stage.
You've just reminded,
that moment, the first night that we
opened
that show and we got to the end, that was unbelievable. I've actually, I think that is the moment. I've never known a feeling like that. The first time we got to the end.
I can't remember if it was Lindsay or who was playing the narrator that night, but at the start of that show, the show opens, and obviously theatres were just allowed to reopen. We were one of the very first, the first time people had been in a room again. And at the start of the show, there's a little chord, and then a spotlight comes up on the narrator who's ready to sing when they're ready. And the chord played and the spotlight came up, and the audience just applauded.
Oh, yeah.
And we were all in the wings watching this because it felt like a monumental moment. And I cried. It was overwhelmingly emotional because it felt important that we had this outlet to be in a room together, to celebrate and tell stories with one another in one place. And that whole show, it was just this bizarre, wonderful experience. And yet at the end, just madness. It was like, we've managed it.
Yeah, we got to the end.
We got here. That's maybe the most striking moment.
Yeah.
I've not thought about that in a while.
No, I mean, the goosebumps must have been like in full flow, right? You would just stand there like, wow, this is amazing. But fantastic.
beautiful.
And then within 4 minutes, you realize you've got a hell of a 2-hour ride ahead of you to get through.
2 hours of sprinting.
Yeah, you literally run. But it was fun.
Listen, you walk up, just that moment of, oh, great. Oh, no. Here we go again. But that, on that note, I think that's a perfect point to finish. So, guys, thank you for today. I've absolutely loved it. This has been a lot of fun and very, very informative as well. Like I said earlier, like you've debunked a lot of fitness stuff, I think, and it's important for that because people want to improve their lives when they go to the gym and also have that enjoyment as well and not feel like they're in this cage of like you must eat only really, really healthy stuff or anything. But no, you guys have come on and said, no, enjoy yourself. In the meantime, just have a healthy diet and just enjoy it at the same time. And as well, just some of those stories, I just fits of laughter here. Just absolutely loved it. Hearing the stories and your inspirations to get to where you are. And of course your podcast as well. And that's going from strength to strength. And, I look forward to tuning in with more episodes about fitness as well as acting stuff. So keep up the already fantastic work, guys. And, just having you on here has been a real honor. And just thank you both for your time. And yeah, so thank you for that. So guys, this has been the Uncensored Critic Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I will be back very soon. So if you guys just hang on, I'll end the recording. I'll say goodbye to you one-to-one. But once again, guys, Steffan, Bobby, Fit2Talk Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.